He casually set up a few traps in the forest and ended up earning 3 million. This rabbit was incredibly valuable, allowing him to survive an extra week in the cold snowy mountains. It was this extra week that brought him immense wealth. On the 68th day, Claz woke up and said he heard noises outside the shelter last night. He guessed it might have been a deer passing by. Today, he plans to check the fishing nets, hoping to catch some fish. Although he had hunted a deer before, he still felt very hungry. He went to the shore, ready to pull up the fishing net, which was tied to a long stick. It wasn't that simple. The wind and waves were likely too strong, tangling the fishing net around the stick and making it impossible to catch any fish. Without food, it meant another day of hunger, so he had to go hunting again. Outside the shelter, it was snowing heavily. Teresa was sleeping inside. Is it cold or hot in there? I was momentarily confused. Could the fire really generate that much heat? Teresa seemed in great shape, not like someone who had been starving. Yesterday she was chopping wood, and today she was organizing hay. I couldn't figure out what these contestants were doing. She pulled out some wood and started carving it, smoothing a branch. It seemed like a waste of time and energy. Teresa felt like a filler contestant. How had she lasted this long? I'd starve if I didn't eat for a day. She made a broom from branches and grass. What good is a broom in the wild? She used it to sweep snow outside the shelter, which seemed pointless. When she got back, the fire had gone out. In this cold, without a fire, the shelter's temperature would drop fast. She went out to gather firewood and rekindle the fire. After being hungry for so long, even gathering firewood felt exhausting. While collecting it, he stumbled upon bear tracks in the snow, which startled him. Luckily, there was plenty of dry wood around, and he managed to gather a large bundle. Bick took out a photo of his unborn son, already looking forward to meeting him. He was curious about who else was still in the game. If he knew he was in the top 3, he might push himself even harder. Bick then went to the shore with a fishing line. Before fishing, he checked the net he had set. The water was shallow, and half the net was still above the surface, saving his energy. Seeing him set the net like that and hoping to catch fish, I can tell Bick is really clueless. Whether he sets the net or not, it makes no difference. If he had made a raft and gone out, he would have caught fish until his hands were sore. Taking the net back and using it as stockings would be better than trying to catch fish here. He put the net back, which was a complete waste of time. On the 69th day, it started snowing heavily again. Every time the camera showed Teresa, it was snowing heavily. Aren't they in the same area? Why is it only snowing on Teresa's side? She was washing a towel with hot water inside the shelter. Now she really wanted to eat something, constantly saying she was hungry. But from her condition, you couldn't tell she was a hungry person. This scene was a bit confusing to me. She did some boring things in the shelter every day, occasionally drinking a cup of hot water. I even suspected she was drinking milk. Suddenly, she received a message from the show crew, possibly for a health check. But Teresa thought the crew might be coming to celebrate her victory. When the crew arrived to check her health, it was clear she had become very thin, and the doctor was very surprised. You've lost a tremendous amount of weight. You need to be concerned about your health as well.
Yes. Maybe as well.
For you to stay out here,
we're going to have to pull you for medical reasons.
Do you guys mind if you just give me a moment? I know, I'm just skin and bones. I'm just disappointed, that's all.
I am a walking bag of bones.
I'm just disappointed, that's all.
In the end, because Teresa's weight had dropped too quickly, the show decided to force her to withdraw from the challenge. Although she didn't want to hear this news, as a weak contestant, she knew her situation. Staying here without getting any food was pointless. After Teresa withdrew, only 2 contestants were left, Bick and Claz, competing for the final championship. But in this ultimate battle, Bick's only advantage was his weight. If Bick won, Claz would be furious. Without food, Bick wanted to cut some tree bark to eat. What kind of experience is it to be so hungry that you eat tree bark? Bick scraped off the bark with a knife, and it looked like noodles. Can this stuff be eaten? He boiled the bark in an iron pot to cook away the prickles. He placed the hot pot on his thigh, and it didn't seem to burn him at all. The bark soup looked like meat soup, and Bick found it delicious. Isn't he going to eat the bark? Just drinking the water won't help. Meanwhile, Claz kept setting hunting traps. He set many snares in the forest, hoping to catch a rabbit. Fishing was very difficult now, so he had to rely on hunting. He had to think carefully about what food he needed each day, as this was the key to survival in the wild. Although Claz was very hungry, he didn't waste time like the other contestants. He considered using every scrap, like the leftover food remnants. If they were still edible, he would eat them all. He decided to go out and check all the traps, hoping to catch a rabbit. He checked the traps, but found none had been triggered. He walked slowly, not daring to use too much energy. When he checked the second trap, he caught a rabbit. What luck! Claz truly earned the title of the King of Hunting, being the contestant who caught the most food. This rabbit would secure his victory over Bick. When he checked the third trap, he found another rabbit. Today's haul was impressive. These 2 rabbits would provide several hearty meals. He cooked them thoroughly, not wasting a bit, even eating the heads. Feeling full gave him a surge of energy, making him want to call a woman to exercise with him. He couldn't stop eating the pot of rabbit meat. At night, Claz heard noises outside the shelter. When he checked, he saw prey nearby. But he didn't hunt it, possibly because it was too dark outside. Claz didn't dare to take the risk. Since he was full tonight, he let it go this time. Next time, he would make it pay. On the 70th day, Bick woke up feeling very hungry again but didn't know how to get food. He took his bow and arrow to look for prey and unexpectedly found a patch of wild onions. Maybe they were covered by snow before and went unnoticed. With the weather improving and the snow melting, Bick dug up the wild onions and cooked them in an iron pot to make soup. The smell was very fragrant. He thought he was close to winning. Claz had a good night's sleep, though his pants were loose and his clothes filthy. He went hunting in the snow, constantly worrying about food. He spotted some footprints, likely from a lion that had been around since the beginning. The lion had visited his traps, leaving bloodstains behind. Claz realized the lion had eaten the rabbit he caught, which was a huge blow. Losing that rabbit meant losing 2 days' worth of food, and it was infuriating to have his hard-earned catch stolen. On the 71st day, Bick woke up to another day of hunger. He feared not finding food during the day and having to endure hunger. Once he fell asleep, he wouldn't feel it. He went to the shore to fetch water and accidentally fell. He was tired of everything here. The days without food were getting harder. When he fetched water and returned, he fell again. This time he had to be careful. Fetching water was exhausting and his heart was pounding. If he couldn't take it anymore, he might as well go home. Eating vegetarian food every day wasn't really surviving in the wild. If it weren't for the extra pounds he carried, Bick would have starved long ago. He felt incredibly weak, like his body was giving up. Quitting felt like a failure to his family. He had been out here for so long, and leaving without the prize would be a loss. But surviving alone for a week earned him $1,000, so he should have made about $10,000 by now. That wasn't bad at all. Even if he quit now, it wouldn't be a total loss. Claz was also torn. Despite being the best at finding food, he couldn't handle the late-stage hunger. He kept reminiscing about the days with his family. At this moment, he didn't want to stay here anymore. He took out a photo of his family from his backpack. It was the first time he looked at their photo. Based on my experience, contestants who look at photos don't last long. Let's see who quits first, him or Bick. Claz was very frustrated now, ready to quit the challenge. He wanted to go home and be with his wife. On the morning of the 73rd day, the show's boat appeared. Which contestant was going to quit? It turned out Bick announced his withdrawal. He couldn't hold on any longer. Recently, his heart had been racing, and he found it hard to survive here, so he decided to quit. He was proud of building the shelter, but barely surviving made quitting reasonable. If Bick had won, it would have been unfair. On the 74th day, Claz was the last contestant standing. He needed to survive just 2 more days to go home and claim the prize. He really wanted to go home now and be with his wife and kids. He was afraid he might call to quit now. Today was the day for a medical checkup. He sat at the door with a chair, waiting for the doctors to come. The spirit of surviving alone in the wild was to persist and live in solitude. Claz had done all that. He was very worried now. He worried about being forced to quit because of his weight. The show crew arrived for a health check. As they interviewed him, it began to snow. He wanted to quit but couldn't admit it. When asked how long he could last, he said it depended on catching rabbits, aiming for the 90th day. Finally, the crew announced he didn't need to continue. He had outlasted everyone. Victory was Claz. He won the $500,000 prize and thanked the animals whose sacrifice kept him alive. As the strongest contestant, Claz deserved this championship. The 8th season of Alone in the Wild ended here. Next, we will update you on the latest version of Alone in the Wild Season 11. Please like, subscribe, and stay tuned.